Yakuza 5 is my favourite Yakuza game, so far at least. I started playing through the Yakuza series early last year and it's been quite a while since I played 4. The game is the most ambitious of the series and has hundreds of hours of content, following the 5 main characters as they uncover the truth of what's happening. The game has a large emphasis on following dreams, being the main thing that connects these characters together. This video will have spoilers, so click off if you want to avoid them, and if you stay, enjoy. We start the game as Kiryu, who's now changed his name to Suzuki, and has started to work as a taxi driver for the last 6 months instead of the usual Yakuza business. We also see that Haruka is now an idol. Guess the guy from Yakuza 2 was right. After sending some money to the orphanage, you enter the first fight of the game, and the combat in 5 is probably the best of the series so far. The soft lock makes it easy to attack the people you want, and overall everything's fast. It's got the double finishers, which I'm still quite annoyed on in Zero Kiwami. Pretty much everything has a heat action, and the bar charge is pretty fast, which keeps the speed of the fights up. Kiryu also has Dragon Spirit now, which is basically Devil Trigger, just making him faster and stronger. Once you finish a fight, you get XP orbs, which are used in a far more simplistic upgrade system than the other games. There are 4 line and each upgrades in a certain order, costing more orbs the further you are in a tree. Entering battles is far quicker now as well, as it's just a bit of text on screen announcing it instead of having to go through text boxes like the last game. The game is full of side stories and each character has a main one they can do, that are basically their own little games inside of Yakuza 5. Kiryu uses taxi driving, which is far less crazy than you'd expect from a Sega game with taxis. The gameplay of it requires you to pay attention to what you're doing, because if you don't, customers will leave a bad review. Needing to check for the traffic lights, stop at crossings, indicate, make sure you don't stop or start too fast, and talking to the customers. However, stuff does get pretty crazy when you play the other part of the taxi minigame. This is where Kiryu has to take down the devil killers by racing them on the street. You can also customize the taxi and upgrade it with points gained from missions, and I spent way too much time on this. You'll be playing as Kiryu in the new city named Nagasugai, which is based on the real life city of Nakasu. The city is clean and colourful, being bordered by 2 rivers. Kiryu's dissociation with the Yakuza doesn't last long though, because his 6th chairman Dojima goes missing after taking a ride in Kiryu's taxi. Kiryu goes searching to try and find who kidnapped him and finds out it was Ayoma, who also just tried to kill the patriarch of the Yamagasa family, which Dojima was attempting to merge with. He frames Kiryu for the killing and escapes. Kiryu follows and leaves the building just in time before he blows it up. Kiryu returns home the next day. There's a girl that's been living with him since he moved, and he reveals that he knows someone sent her. She takes him to the person that did. Madarame, the patriarch that got stabbed last night. He tells Kiryu that he sent his daughter Mayumi to watch over him per Daigo Dojima's request. He tells Kiryu that Dojima wasn't actually kidnapped and he disappeared on his own accord, most likely for his own safety. He gives Kiryu a letter to give to the police saying that the Yamagasa family is going to be dissolved. He says he's doing this for the safety of his men from the Tojo clan. However, Kiryu has a different plan in mind. He meets with Yahata and has him call Ayoma to a nighttime confrontation. There, Kiryu averts a war between the Tojo and the Yamagasa by single-handedly defeating all the Tojo men there. And of course, he does it in style. But Morinaga kills Ayoma before he can say too much and reveals that he's part of a conspiracy. Though Kiryu intends to stay out the Tojo clan's business this time, a cop that he saw previously tells him about a dead Tojo clan member found with their face mutilated, so they don't know the ID of him. However, when he gets back in his car, it's revealed who the person that was killed was. Goro Majima. The news of the death causes Kiryu to come back once more as he heads for Kamurocho. Action-packed this part is not in the early stages, but you do get a fair amount of fighting later on. The taxi side story was wonderful. Even just driving people from place to place was really nice and relaxing because of the city it took place in. Making small talk with people in the car, running into old friends and making new ones. And come on, the boss of the company is so damn lovable. Kiryu is as fun as ever to play, so this is overall a banger start to a banger game. After voluntarily returning to prison to cleanse himself of his past sins and start a clean slate, Saejima is now awaiting parole at Abashiri prison in Hokkaido. Trying to be on his best behaviour so he can get out on parole, he gets harassed by a prisoner named Hiroshi Kugihara, who abuses Saejima. Tension escalates when Kugihara frames Baba for an attack on one of his friends. After finding Kugihara and confronting him, giving us a first shirt strip for the game, Kugihara lets it slip that somebody instructed him to harass Saejima and trick him into fighting so he'd be denied parole. Both of them get taken to the infirmary. Saejima's combat is the second slowest in the game, being focused on slow, hard-hitting attacks instead of fast, decent damage. His combo finishes can be charged for more damage. I personally wasn't a huge fan of his combat at first, but it grew on me as I played. Still, I'll always choose the faster, less damaging attacks than the slow, big ones. The gameplay of the first chapter of his story is pretty slow as well, mainly consisting of walking around talking to people. It makes sense because of his goals, but it is still pretty lame and drags a bit. We see Saejima speaking to one of the prison guards named Kosaka, and gets told that he got a letter saying that Saejima was expelled from the Tojo clan. Kosaka tells him that now he's out of the Yakuza he can try again for parole, but Saejima says that he wants to stay in prison now with the people he trusts, his cellmates. Back in his cell, Saejima learns about the death of his sworn brother Majima. Both Baba and Saejima get called and taken down to the storage room by Kosaka, where they learn that Saejima was denied parole and Baba used to be part of the family that killed Majima. Kosaka tells them that he's worried for their safety because so far everything seems planned. Kugihara and his gang transferred to the prison 6 months ago and immediately start assaulting Saejima with the clear goal to extend his sentence. Soon after, he was expelled from his clan, so Kosaka began processing his parole. Kugihara then tried another tactic, setting Baba up so that Saejima's request would be denied. He comes to the conclusion that there's a traitor in Tojo that's trying to take Saejima's place as chairman by keeping him trapped in prison. Kosaka gives Saejima the keys to a snowmobile and tells him to break out of the prison. Kosaka says that a warden has been murdered and they don't know who's done it. He was travelling to Tokyo to inquire as to why Saejima's parole was denied. He says that soon they're having nearly 100 new inmates coming to prison, and he's afraid they might be there for a specific purpose. He says that if he lets Saejima and Baba stay, their blood will be on his hands, and as someone who has sworn to protect people, he can't let that happen. He says that they've atoned for their sins and tells them to show the world who the real enemy is, those responsible for the warden's murder. They go back to the cell and play one last game of cards with the gang and head out when everyone's sleeping. They go outside and see a policeman's dead body. They get surrounded by inmates, and Kosaka shouts down at them from a window to run before getting stabbed in the back by Kugihara. So of course, Saejima gives some high-fast speech about how the rest of their lives are going to wish he killed them today. Music starts playing, and we get to busting skulls and cracking asses. They get on the snowmobile, and long story short, they crash the whip and Saejima fights a 20-foot tall bear, and he does it in style. Saejima passes out because of the cold and gets taken in by a hunter named Okidera. However, Baba is still lost in the snow. Leaving the building, we're spoken to by a resident of the village. He tells us about a bear named Yama Orochi, which is twice the size of a regular one. Saejima tells him that it sounds like the one he fought, and the man tells him to stay home if he wants to be safe. The village that Saejima was taken to is deep in the mountains and is a cozy place. The only sounds heard being of feet in the snow, the whistles of the wind, and the water travelling through the river. The dark wood buildings and bridges complement the white of the snow nicely. The quieter place is different to other locations in the Yakuza games, mostly in populated cities with a lot going on. This is one of my favourite locations. Going through, we learn about an attack that happened on the village 9 years ago. The attack was done by Yama Orochi, the bear, and resulted in the destruction of most of the village and food supplies almost being completely gone, driving the village to the brink of starvation. This attack was called by Okidera's old hunting partner, who drove the bear towards the village whilst hunting for it. After it left, he went back out looking for it but never came back. The man assumes that the reason Okidera is still hunting the bear is in order to get revenge. However, this puts the town at risk and makes Okidera more of a nuisance than anything else. Saejima sets off up the mountain to find Baba after being given a map by one of the locals, and once again the atmosphere is on point. The mountain is isolating and the fog making it so you can't see too far ahead adds to that. Once again the only sounds are the wind, the river and yourself, added to the feeling of isolation. Heading up the mountain, Saejima sees Baba and Okidera both wounded by the bear. They hear the bear ground, so Saejima takes Baba back while Okidera shoots at it. They all make it back safely, however they lost the bear in the storm. The next day Baba wakes up, so Saejima goes back up in the mountain to find Okidera. This unlocks Saejima's minigame, hunting. This one is also pretty enjoyable. Taking walks around the mountain, stopping at camps you can build if you need to, until you find your prey, sneaking up on it, aiming down sight, the sound of your heartbeat rising against the wind, and bang, you got yourself some deer. Going back out the day after, you unlock a new type of hunting, rabbit hunting. Creatures like rabbits and foxes can be caught by setting traps. The more you hunt, the more skills and equipment you unlock. A path is now open, meaning Saejima and Baba can go down to Tsukimino. When they arrive, they see that Saejima is now wanted nationwide for escaping prison. However, Baba is only announced as an anonymous dead body. The city is based off the real-life location Susukino. The city is covered in snow and has many cozy alleys you can walk through. There's also a snowball game you can play. Baba takes him to a new hideout and Saejima heads out to find the Kataka. He finds out that he's going to be a guest of honour at the snow festival. Saejima comes to the conclusion that they'll have to kidnap him during the festival. During the festival, they kidnap him and learn that the Kataka family didn't kill Majima. He tells them that the family had no reason to. Majima came asking to become an equal alliance. He didn't demand they be ruled by Tojo. Kataka said that he didn't and still doesn't have any objections to the offer, and that he was going to accept it. He then says that when he called a second meeting with Majima, he told him that he would accept the alliance. When he did, Majima sat silent. When he spoke, he said that Kitaka shouldn't accept the alliance. He said that Majima knew something was up. Behind all this nonsense, someone was working towards something bigger. If they swore this oath of alliance, they'd be playing right into that person's hand. Saejima asks if he knows who's orchestrating all this. Kitaka says he does. Saejima chases down the shooter and sees who it is. Baba says that everything that's happened so far was part of the plan, and that they sent him to keep watch on Saejima. He says that Kugiharu is working for him, and Baba used him to get Saejima to extend his prison time. He also got Majima killed, so Saejima would be more likely to try and escape. Saejima asks why it's so important for him to be on the outside, and Baba says that it's the most vital part of his boss's plan. Baba pulls out a gun and asks why Saejima came back for him in the mountains. Saejima says that he couldn't let his brother die. Baba can't bring himself to pull the trigger, and goes to try and shoot himself instead. Saejima hits him and tells him that no matter how hard life gets, you gotta keep living, and to teach him that, he's gonna beat the fear of death into him. Baba asks if Saejima's going to ask who his boss is. He says he doesn't care, and knowing's not going to bring Majima back. However, he has got a feeling his brother's still alive. They go their separate ways, saying that when they meet again they'll swear an oath for real. Now being on his own, Saejima gets spoken to by the same policeman we saw in Kiryu's story, who tells him that he's under arrest. In the van, he tells Saejima that Kitaka's alive and healing at a hospital. He says that it wasn't Kitaka's boys who killed Majima, it was the Tojo clan. He says that there's a traitor in Tojo. He says he thinks it's Morinaga. He says that Saejima is an essential piece in this puzzle. He takes Saejima to the airport and sends him to Kamurocho to find information on what's happening. Overall, although this part starts off kinda slow with a bit of unnecessary mission design at the prison, it kicks off fast once you leave, and once again the third chapter I loved, with the whole side story about taking down the bear was amazing. Getting to learn about the history of the village and the people in it was really captivating. The gameplay was also pretty solid in the hunting. Saejima was also pretty fun to play as and in the cutscenes. Him and all his prison boys worked well together. I love the big man big heart stuff, like when it was revealed that Baba was a rat all along, but he still forgave him because he saw him as a brother. That stuff really hits in the full cutscene. The main city in chapter 4 is also beautiful, and the snowball minigame pretty fun. We see Kiryu 1.5 years earlier speaking to a woman about Haruka's dream of being an idol. She says that if Haruka wants to become one, Kiryu will need to leave her life, because people want to know everything about her and they can't risk Yakuza ties coming into it. He refuses, saying that the children at the orphanage need him, but she tells him that she'll fund every one of the kids' future and make sure they're safe when he leaves. She also says he can choose a replacement for himself. We now play as Haruka in the returning location of Sotenbori, based on the real-life location Dotonbori. The area is split by a river, with the north side being the lively Sotenbori street, and the south having a more underground feel called Shofukucho, I think that's how you say it. Haruka's gameplay is far different from the other characters, being a rhythm game, where you have to press the right buttons in the right time, either being one of the face buttons or a direction on the D-pad. The better you do, the heat gauge charging up. Activating that increases the speed of the buttons, but also increases the amount the idle bar fills up, increasing the rank you get. At the end of every dance, she improves in 4 idle abilities: singing, appeal, performance, and basic skill. Each skill is improved by a different activity. Singing is mainly through lessons, appeal mainly via jobs such as handshake events, performance through dance events and battles, and basic skill is improved by raising Haruka's level. Her story follows her trying to win the Princess League. She wins the first, and the day before the second round, Park, Haruka's manager, takes Haruka with her around town to relieve stress. During this, Park tells her about her past. She had secretly been married during her time as a star, but her husband left after she aborted the child without telling him. She failed to make it big due to her agency leaking the secret marriage, ending the career to avoid a scandal. Park entrusts Haruka with a pen and her failed dream. The next day, Haruka gets called down to her agency's building in a rush. Arriving there, we found out that Park committed suicide by jumping off the roof. Returning from 4, everyone's favourite guy Akiyama is working on setting up a new branch of his business, Sky Finance, up in Sotenbori. He gets a call from his secretary Hana about Park's suicide. Since he lent money to their company, he now has to go speak to Hori, Haruka's publicist, about it. On the way down, Akiyama gets into a fight. Akiyama's combat is one of my favourites in the series, mainly using kicks, which I think is pretty cool. He's fast and uses quick step cancels to extended combos and dodge during them. You can also do juggles by kicking people into the air. The heat moves he learns can also be used used to doing air combos after launching. He's a laid back and lazy yet kind person, often putting the city's residents' needs above his own. Despite his occupation as a loan shark, he selectively lends out his money free of interest and collateral. Instead, he gives unique tests to his clients before he loans the money to determine whether they're truly in need of it. He speaks to Haruka, and he tells Akiyama that the note she left was only 2 sentences. "I'm tired, I'm sorry." He also says that the money Akiyama gave her is no longer in her safe. They both suspect that Park actually didn't commit suicide. After all, she was spending so much time trying to train Haruka. Akiyama says it will do what he can to find out who murdered her. He goes upstairs to speak to the girl Park was training, and is surprised to see that it's Haruka, who also believes Park was murdered. After a bit of convincing from Haruka, Akiyama agrees and they both team up to find out who killed Park. For the rest of this part of the game, you'll switch between Haruka and Akiyama depending on the mission. They decide that Haruka should still take part in the Princess League to carry on Park's dream, but they need to get the money back quick, and to do that they need to investigate the murder. They open the safe with the pen Haruka was given and see a note that Park wrote with her left hand. The handwriting isn't the same as a suicide note. They leave the building and Akiyama catches the person running away, Ogita. Haruka's old dance instructor. Park fired and refused to pay. We also see who the dead body on the floor is, Horie. Ogita pulls out a knife so they fight and Akiyama wins. He goes to check on Horie, who's still alive, but turns around to see a guard point a gun at him. In true Yakuza fashion, Akiyama beats him down and he somehow tanks another fire extinguisher hit to the head. After the fight, the man leaves saying that he'll remember Akiyama, and Ogita stumbles away. We see Akiyama talking to a detective who says that when they find Ogita, they can get him for attempted murder on Horie. However, they can't do anything about Park, as that's already been declared a suicide, and the information they have isn't enough to warrant another investigation. Akiyama calls Hana to get her to search for a forger in Kamurocho, as Haruka remembers that Kiryu mentioned one. Haruka takes part and wins in round 2 of the Princess League. Back in the agency, Akiyama tells Haruka and Yamaura, her vocal coach and new manager, that the money wasn't stolen like they assumed and was actually spent on reserving the Japan Dome, the same place Park almost performed at, for Haruka's debut if she won the Princess League. They all agree they'll do their best to organise the event and carry on Park's dream. Akiyama gets a call from someone from Kamurocho, saying they got told to speak to him by his secretary. Akiyama asks if he knows any forgers in Sottenbury and learns that there's one in Crest Bar. Once again, as per Yakuza tradition, after a little bit of stomping we get to see the forger. He says that he'll answer any question if Haruka's there, so Akiyama brings her and they ask him if he forged the note, and he says he did. He says he doesn't know the name, but he was massive like a wrestler and looked like he was Yakuza. He says that he doesn't know where they can find the man, but he once saw him in a car with someone he assumes is his boss, Naoki Katsuya, the president of Osaka Talent, one of Diner Chair's rivals. The next day we plays Akiyama and take a trip down to Osaka Talent. While there he speaks to Katsuya, and after a bit of back and forth he hands Akiyama a check for him to stop looking into this. However, he claims that he isn't involved. He just doesn't want people to think he is because his business could suffer if people think. If money is how he needs to solve that, so be it. Akiyama says that he's not here for a handout and leaves, not taking the bribe and still suspicious of him, with plans to come back once he has more evidence. He gets a call from someone saying they want to talk about Park's suicide and they're out for Sky Finance. Whilst this is happening, Haruka is competing in the Princess League final. She wins and can we all just appreciate how I got a flawless performance with no misses. Arriving at Sky Finance as Akiyama, we see the same policeman as in the other 2 stories. He says that the one pulling the strings behind this is Osaka Enterprises, an Omi Alliance front company. He says that a man named Kanai is the one running around doing all their dirty work. He's the person Ogita worked for and the one who got the note forged. He says that the Omi Alliance are all running around trying to become chairman, so it's not a good time for Akiyama to be sticking his head into their business. He leaves on that note. A bunch of Omi boys enter the room and Akiyama uses them to learn a bit about where Kanai might be located. He arrives at their place and fights his way through until he sees Ogita, who's missing an arm. He says that Kanai did it to him and he's not ready to die yet. He says that he'll tell Akiyama anything he wants and he'll even talk to the police if he has to. He says that it was him that killed her. He said he did it because of a job someone gave him. He was in debt with some loan sharks and because Park fired him he couldn't pay it. They said his debt would be excused if he gets something from her. A letter from her ex-husband. He says they were trying to track down her ex. Him and Kanai went there but couldn't find anything. So they waited for her to come back and tried to force her to tell them. She tried to run for it so they did what they had to do. It would have been over for Ogita if she escaped. The next thing they knew her head smacked against the floor in the hallway and she stopped moving. It was Kanai that made it look like a suicide. It was Kanai alone that tried to kill Horie. Akiyama goes inside the building and finds Kanai, who tells him that he sent some of his boys over to get Haruka, to find out where the letter from her ex is. He leaves and Akiyama rings Haruka and gets answered by Yamaura, who tells him that some Yakuza-looking men took her. They said they killed Haruka if she reported it. See Haruka in a room with Kanai trying to get her to tell him where the letter is. We see the chairman Katsuya, who says he's had enough of Kanai. Akiyama's now down a chair and they all still don't know where Haruka is. Katsuya enters holding Haruka in his arms. He apologizes and says that Haruka was never meant to get involved. He confesses and says he's not only chairman of Osaka Enterprises, he also serves as Omi Alliance chief of HQ. Kanai is part of his organization and he apologizes for him. He also says that he learned of his actions a short time ago. Tracking down the letter was their only objective, and it's the only way for them to track down her ex. Nothing else that happened was supposed to. Akiyama asks who this ex-husband is, and Katsuya says that he's a top Tojo officer, Goro Majima. He says that Majima reportedly passed away a couple of days ago, but he thinks he's still alive. His entire organisation is working on tracking him down. He says that Majima sent her a letter and they'd like to see it for themselves. He says that he still thinks Haruka knows where the letter is, and that when she comes to ask her for him. That would be the best for all parties. Akiyama leaves the room and tells the two other workers that's on a chair that him and Haruka are going to skip town. Whether they have the letter or not is too dangerous for her. He's going to take her to Kamurocho. It's Tojo territory, so the Omi would have no choice but to tread carefully. And Haruka's got a concert she can't miss. One way or another they need to see this through. In the other room, Haruka wakes up and gets a call from Katsuya. He says that she needs to give him the letter, but she refuses. He says that he looked into her background and saw that she had ties to the legendary dragon the Dojima. Considering what he's done to the Omi, if his whereabouts were made known, they wouldn't hesitate to attack him. Maybe even use the Morning Glory orphanage to lure him out. He asks if the letter's worth more than Kiryu in the orphanage. She says she'll do it. She takes a note and leaves the room. Akiyama follows soon after, expecting that something's up. At the station, Haruka and Katsuya agree to meet at. We see Kanai get off the train instead. She gets surrounded by Yakuza. She refuses to give up the letter because he broke the agreement, so he takes it himself. They go to leave with the letter.
Akiyama-san!
Akiyama arrives just in time to talk some sense into them, and by talk some sense I mean kick the shit out of them. Haruka and Akiyama make their way to the Kamurocho. In the car there, Haruka reads the letter. I look forward to seeing you after the concert in the Japan Dome. Don't worry, I'll be coming alone. That's the promise. Overall, this part of the game is probably one of my favourites. I love Sotenbori as a location, the gameplay of Akiyama is some of my favourite in the series. And Haruka's was a nice change of pace after 8 chapters of school crushing. The two worked together pretty well in the cutscenes and I was invested throughout the most of this part. It gave a nice look into the more overlooked part of the idol world, showing a lot more of the darker sides of it. Like how Haruka has to give up a lot of her life as a 16-year-old to see success. A lot of this stuff parallels some of the things we see in the Yakuza as well. And who doesn't love Akiyama? Like, this man carries so much swag and is just so likeable. In 1997, newcomer to this series, Tatsuo Shinada, made his debut as the Major League Basketball player for the Nagoya Wyverns, beating the opposing team in style and looking to have a promising future. By 2012, Shinada is barely making a living as a heavily indebted adult entertainer writer in Nagoya, getting by thanks to the kindness of the city folk. He owes a lot of money to Koichi Takasugi in particular. He's working at Club Futo Momo, and one of the workers hasn't turned up, so he brings her to see where he is. She says that her brother broke something at his work and his boss is giving him death threats and she can't go to the police. If Shinada doesn't get money soon, he'll have to take Takasugi's offer of losing fingers as a factory worker to get enough money to pay off his debt. So he goes down to Kubota security to save him. The security that doesn't feel like letting him go, so he beats some sense into them. Shinada's combat is slower as his main focus is grappling by extending into grabs after finishing combos when in heat mode. He also has a bigger focus on weapon usage than the other characters, being able to do more stuff with them than the others. He also doesn't get any money from fights, further reinforcing the fact that he's washed and broke. Shinada gets him out by explaining that the bat he broke is fake and cost barely anything. Now Milky can come back, so they get to work.
今日はお礼の気持ちを込めてよーけサービスしたるわ。
それじゃシャワー浴びますか。
He gets his paycheck and it's far less than what he expected because he's missed so many deadlines. He sees Takasugi, who takes his money and says that he still owes 1,327,534 yen. Kenichi, the city Shinada lives in, is far less attractive than the others. The paths are full of litter and the buildings look to have mould on the front. He goes to the batting cages to win some money but doesn't keep it for long. He heads home and there's a masked man that says that he wants Shinada to uncover the truth of his past. He shows him a ball that was from his home run. We learn that the day after the match he was permanently banned from baseball, accused of sign stealing and match fixing. He shows Shinada a suitcase and says that this is a business proposition. He wants him to investigate what happened 15 years ago regarding his truncated career. When he discovers the truth, he'll be paid what's in the case. It's equal to the annual salary of what he should have earned in his first year, 20 million yen. The man says that the truth of what happened 15 years ago has much importance to him. Shinada tries to reject his offer. His entire life was flipped upside down after what happened. He wants nothing more than to forget it. Takasugi appears and makes him take the offer though. Shinada says that he's sure the home run was fair and he didn't fix any matches. The man says that he wants to find whoever framed Shinada. Shinada's the only one that can do that. Shinada and Takasugi search around a bit and learn from Shinada's old teammate, Manabe, that the scandal had driven both the Tojo clan and the Omi alliance out of Nagoya and away from match fixing. Shinada deduces that the Nagoya family had fixed this match. This theory gets confirmed when Saki, another former player, confirms it. Before they can learn more, he gets crushed by a cement mixer that was aimed for Shinada. The next day, Shinada gets a call from Milky saying that a bunch of people took her brother away. She says that she doesn't know who they are, but one had a wound on his cheek. She tells him that she followed them and she's near Warehouse 62 at the port. He rushes down there and sees it was the trap by the civilians of the city. They say that Shinada's scandal was the key to ridding the city of large Yakuza families who terrorise small businesses. To prevent this information from leaking, they decide they need to kill him, but none of them can do it. A bunch of Yakuza come in and ask why he's still alive. One of them goes to do it for them. Takasugi arrives just in time and helps Shinada escape. We see Shinada almost give up, saying that he wants to move to a new city again, somewhere that he doesn't know and doesn't know him. He tells Takasugi that he can have his fingers and he doesn't care about it anymore. It then gets revealed that Takasugi was actually a fan of Shinada, and that's why he wants to know what happened. He was the person who gave the sign ball to the man with the mask in an attempt to get Shinada to do the job. He's ashamed of how Shinada fell and wants to see him do better again.
じゃあ何を結局みんな俺のこと知ってたってことですか
He says that they need to finish this job, not only for the money, but he wants his ball back as well. He treasured that thing. Manabe appears and Shinada beats him. After a little chat, he rings someone and passes Shinada the phone. They discover that the leader of the Nagoya family is none other than Shinada's old coach, Fujita. The next day, Shinada speaks to the masked man that tells him about how the Nagoya family wasn't actually Yakuza and was just made to look like it by the townspeople. Shinada says that his attackers aren't killers, so they're probably not responsible for the staged killings that happened over the past few days. They both think that the Nagoya family is just a front for a more sinister Yakuza organisation. The masked man says he might know who's pulling the strings. The man hands Shinada the money saying that the job's finished and he's gonna go speak to Fujita. Shinada says that he still wants to come along and help. The masked man tells him to stay out of it and it's his job now. He reveals his identity. Taiga Saejima. Shinada and Dojima both went to the same high school, but Dojima was expelled after beating up a bunch of kids from another school, after they were threatening the baseball team to forfeit. He says that Shinada and the team were an inspiration to both him and the school. He says that because he's Yakuza, it's not safe for Shinada to get involved and carry on the investigation with him. However, he will get Shinada unbanned from baseball. Although he can't return as a player, Dojima will negotiate his return as a coach or manager. Shinada says that he's not going to have Yakuza take his dream and give it back 15 years later. Some thug using his shady connections to bring him back. That's not what he wants, that's a hollow victory. If he wants his dream back, he'll do it his way. They fight and Dojima sees it as enough to prove Shinada's dedication, so he agrees to take him with him to Tokyo. They get on the train, but before it sets off, Shinada reads a newspaper and sees Sawada has transferred to the Wyverns. He rushes off and goes to the old field they played their game at. After fighting off some Omi guys, they have a rematch, this time a fair one. Overall, the chapter was pretty fun. Even though Shinada was my least favourite character when it came to combat in the game, what he had to offer was still pretty solid. At first I wasn't too into the baseball plot, but it intrigued me throughout most of it. Shinada himself was really charming. I like seeing how kind of naive he is to the weight of some of the situations he gets himself into. The people around him being fed up with him but still loving him. whether it was Uno, his old team's massager who was fired along with him, or Takasugi, who stuck around with him and they made a pretty good duo in the cutscenes. In the end, Shinada even gave him all the money in his ball, saying that he can spend the change for a gift for his kids, who get referenced when Takasugi comments on how dumb Shinada is, knowing damn well Takasugi isn't even married. And the scene where he gets tricked by the townspeople also shows the relationships he has with them, how they couldn't kill him. It's nice in the way he positively impacts our lives, even if he is pretty daft sometimes. The reveal as Doji is the masked man was unexpected as well. Overall a great chapter with a nice change of tone.
はいお釣り
ああいやいい
マジでやっぱりさ登場会の会長になると小銭とか持たないんだね
おい
え
これでも素性を隠して行動してるんだ頼むぜ
やべはあ結構ヤクザってのも大変なんだな
Arriving back in Kamurocho, Kiryu gets followed by Baba until he confronts him behind a building. Kiryu beats him up and at Club Serena he gets told that Aoyama and Morgana were Omi this entire time. Their goal was to kill Dojima and the two top figures, Kiryu and Saejima. That's why they were both lured to Kamurocho. There are 3 Omi fighting for the throne since the chairman is dying. Watase, who Kiryu says wouldn't get involved, Takachi, who died, and the third captain who has influence to pull these strings. Katsuya. We see Saejima talking to Detective Serizawa and is tasked to locate Morinaga. He has to Purgatory to ask the florist about his whereabouts. Purgatory is a place I love. It's located in the underground of Kamurocho, being a predominantly pink and red place in the style of traditional Japanese architecture. Walking down the main path there are multiple buildings, with people inside you can see into. And at the very end is the florist house, being a grand mansion looking building, built on top of water with 2 trees outside of it. Inside is a whole different vibe, with white pillars extending off on each side leading to a big fish tank. The path also has water running beside it. The florist takes him to Aizawa, who's also interested in the location of Morinaga, as they were both Dojima's bodyguards and sworn brothers. He gets his shit rocked in the ring, but rises when the opponent thinks they won, and Aizawa wins the fight by almost killing him in a pretty disturbing scene. Until Saejima stops him. Aizawa tells him that Morinaga abandoned him and left him a note, only saying get away, go back to Tokyo. He wandered around Fukuoka trying to find him until he learnt that he killed Ioma. That's when he realised he abandoned him and everything they stood for good. He says that's why he's looking for him, and the florist told him that he can know if he won the fight. The florist told him after that he couldn't trust a guy who's willing to kill in the ring. Saejima gets in the ring and tells Aizawa to fight him. If he wins, that means he can see his brother and they can settle what they need to. If he's able to win, that proves his dedication. Saejima wins and tells him that him and Morinaga are still brothers, and when a brother goes down a dark path, it's the other's job to pull them back up. The fight impresses the florist so much he tells Saejima and Aizawa where Morinaga is. He tells him he's in the Kamurocho PD basement, the morgue to be precise. We see Katsuya and Akiyama talking in a room. He offers Akiyama 500 mil to pull out of the concert in the Tokyo Dome. He wants T-Set, Haruka's rivals that he owns, to play there instead. Akiyama refuses. He goes back to Sky Finance to see Shinada there waiting for him. He asks for a loan of 320 million yen. He says that he needs to get at least 300 mil sooner or a lot of people are going to be in danger. There's a concert at the Japan Dome and he needs to get it cancelled by any means possible. He says that Sawada told him that the Kuroha, an Omi subsidiary, are planning to pull something at the show. Akiyama tells him that the girl performing there is under his care and they've already promised to perform. He's also already turned down an offer paying far more. He says the first thing they need to do to make sure the concert is safe is to find out the Kuroha family's plans. They ask some homeless people to help them find the organiser, and when they find him they learn that Park and Katsuya were actually friends and only made it look like they were rivals for publicity. The man shows them a photo of her, Katsuya and Majima all together. He says that he heard Majima and Katsuya still meet up if they're both in Tokyo. Back when Katsuya had his accident, which meant he could no longer act, it was Majima that helped him out by taking him to Osaka and getting him set up there. Park moved there shortly after as well. We see Kiryu and Baba watching the TV and see Katsuya on it saying that Haruka's event in the dome has been cancelled, and T-Set, Haruka's rivals, will be paying there instead. We then see Saejima and Aizawa watching the same thing with the florist. We learn that according to the leaks from the police investigation, Katsuya was the one who killed Morinaga. Aizawa tries to run off to their hotel Katsuya's staying at, but Saejima stops him and says that he'll go instead. It'd be better for Aizawa to go see his brother at the morgue. We see Kiryu at the bar who tells Baba that Katsuya is sending a message to the Tojo, saying that he's here and trying to gather them. Kiryu leaves and tells Baba that Haruka's holding a concert at the Japan Dome in 2 days and he'd like them to pass a message. He tells her to tell her to never give up. He goes to the Millennium Tower and fights his way up. He arrives at the top and sees Saejima there. Katsuya says that they're still waiting for one more. Watase enters the room. Katsuya takes him to the roof. He said that he lured them here to find out who the true mastermind is. The one who tried to assassinate Chairman Dojima and Patriarch Madarame. The one who killed Majima and Sapporo and caused the accident in Nagoya that killed Azumi and Takichi, top Tojo and Omi men. It was planned by someone who wanted to crush both the Tojo clan as well as the Omi alliance. Watase tells him to spit it out already, but Katsuya says that he truly doesn't know who or why this person went through such lengths to make them fight each other. He says that to find out they'll have a showdown here. It seems whoever's pulling their strings intends for them all to die, but merely killing them isn't enough, it has to be a battle to the death. Osaka Enterprises and Watase are important parts of the Omi, and Kiryu and Saejima are the pillars of Tojo. It'd be easy to walk away with everything exerting minimal effort. He says he believes this person will show up once they fought. Kiryu and Saejima won their fight, so that just leaves them two for a 1v1, which obviously ends up in a tie. They stand up ready for round 2. They see the cop that was in both their stories, when Watase tells them that he's no cop. He's actually their boss. He's the one behind all of this. 7th chairman of the Omi Alliance, Tsubasa Kurosawa himself. Watase stands up and asks what the point of all this is. He followed every command he was given. All he wanted was to do his boss proud and be the finest soldier in the land. That's what he lived for. Kurosawa says it's because he's too damn likeable. Same with Katsuya. He despises Yakuza who are afraid to fight dirty, especially punks like them who act like they're above it all and skate by on charm alone. Katsuya takes a bullet for Watase, his final words being that Watase should be 8th chairman, and without him the Omi will fall. Kiryu and Saejima stand up and tell him that they'll make him pay for what he's done. He points his gun at them and says that he has 1 bullet and asks for a volunteer. Dojima appears and points his gun at Kurosawa. He says that he suspected him for a while, and after doing research in Nagoya, it was confirmed. He said he talked over with Majima and they decided to play along with his plan. He raises his gun, but Dojima shoots it out his hand. He walks over and tells him that he has 2 choices. He can end it himself like a real Yakuza, or he can put the weight of that responsibility into Dojima's hands. Kurosawa tells him that showing mercy is the surest way to get yourself killed. Kanai shoots him. Dojima passes out. Kiryu shouts at him and Kurosawa tells him that he should worry more about what's to come. That little girl of yours, for instance. We see Haruka, her dance instructor, and her manager talking about how her concert got cancelled because Osaka Talent was paying more for their venue. They say no matter how long it takes, they'll eventually get a concert in the Dome and make Park's dream come true. The 2 girls of T-Set and Nakai, their manager, enter the room, and he tells them that they're cancelling T-Set's performance tomorrow, in favour for one the day after, with a new group called Dreamline, which consists of Haruka and T-Set. He says that Park and Katsuya had this plan from the start apparently. They agree because of that. Baba enters the room and asks to speak to Haruka, and tells her that he has a message from Kiryu. He tells her to meet him at a park. Haruka goes there and he tells her what Kiryu said. She tells him that she's got another concert set up in the Japan Dome again. This causes Baba to go quiet. He asks if she really does have her heart set on performing at that concert. He says he has a feeling something bad might happen. He says that if this concert came out of the blue, that makes him even more suspicious of it. The Japan Dome isn't the kind of place you can just decide to put on a show. He tells her that Kiryu's friend got in an accident and he's taking it rough. He might be on the verge of doing something reckless. Don't you think she'd be there for him in this hour of need? You can have the concert anytime. She says she's sorry but she can't. She says that if they both see each other they'll both lose something even more important. She says she believes in him. That's why she keep walking down this path he's sacrificed so much to send her down. She leaves and thanks him for giving the message. Baba lights a cigarette. Damn it, what am I doing? Back at Serena, Saejima and Kiryu are healing the best they can, since they can't go to hospitals. Dase's there as well. Akiyama turns up there as well, and he's also got himself wrapped up in this mess. He shows them a picture of Majima, Park and Katsuya, so they decide to try and think of a plan to protect Haruka, and take down Kurosawa. We see Shinada walking down a hall and passing Watase. He stops and asks a question. If one of your friends died, would you get revenge or carry on the dream you shared? Shinada said that he'd want to get revenge, but if the friend would have wanted to see the dream play out, go for the dream. Back at Serena, the group is looking at the layout of the dome with Shinada.
彼が大悟さんの友人で元プロ野球選手で球界を追放されて おまけに俺から3億2000万もの金を借金しようとした、名古屋の風俗ライター白田です。よろしくお願いします。
Using Shinada's baseball knowledge, they're able to estimate where someone would take a shot from and other things necessary for their defense plan. Whilst this is happening, Kurosawa gets paid a visit by Majima. We see the four in Serena again on the day of the concert, and on the TV it gets announced that Majima is being held captive at the Millennium Tower. The four decide to go there. When they get there, some Yakuza dudes pull up and start just shooting everywhere. Akiyama and Kiryu sort them out, and on one of the bodies, Saejima reads that the person belonged to the Majima family. They get surrounded by Yakuza and have no choice but to split up. Akiyama and Kiryu stay and fight. Saejima goes after Majima, and Shinada helps Haruka. In the concert, we see Baba in the stands and he opens a case with a gun inside. On the roof of the tower, Kurosawa shows Saejima a video of Haruka at the concert. When he gives the signal, she gets shot. He unlocks Majima's chains and tells Saejima that if he wants the girl to survive, he needs to kill his own sworn brother. If Majima wins, he gives the signal to shoot. If Saejima wins, the girl lives and he can spend the rest of his days behind bars for taking Majima hostage and killing him in retaliation for throwing out the Tojo clan. They have no other choice but to fight, and they do. Eventually stopping too early for Kurosawa, so he tries to call the shot but gets no answer. We see Baba deciding that he no longer wants to shoot and going to walk away before getting stopped by Shinada. He starts spouting some baseball stuff, then fights Baba. Shinada wins and looks down on the stage and reflects a bit about his past baseball days. Baba tries to kill himself again, but before he can, he's going to get shot out of his hands by his old prison friend, and Kosaka, who survived. He says that Saejima called him and told him to look after Baba so they can atone for their sins together as brothers. Kosaka tells him to come home with him. Shinada then questions if he has a home to go back to. He gets a call from Takasugi asking how he is and says it is a message that Milky wants to give him. She says that if he comes back, she'll give him 90 minutes for 3,000 yen. He tells Shinada that everyone misses him and they want him to come back. Saejima passes Kurosawa the phone he gave him and sees that Shinada's on the other end. He goes to shoot Majima and Saejima, but once again his gun gets shot out of his hands by Dojima, who's there with Katsuya. In the back room of Haruka's concert, she sees Akiyama and Kiryu fighting outside the tower. On the roof, they learn about Kurosawa's plan to put his son Aizawa in charge. He wasn't trying to crush the Omi and Tojo, he was trying to give them to Aizawa. Kiryu leaves to go to the Tojo HQ, and Akiyama fights Kanai. After fighting Kanai and beating a bunch of Omi guys, some of the Yakuza families walk up to him and congratulate him and bow to him. Kiryu arrives at the Tojo HQ and sees Aizawa waiting for him. They fight and Kiryu wins. He falls to the ground. During Haruka's concert, she stops singing and speaks to the crowd. She tells them that she needs to retire because the thing she holds the most dear is her family, Kiryu and the orphanage, and while being an idol she can't do that. We see Akiyama with Watase and the Yakuza, and Saejima, Dojima and Katsuya helping each other up off the roof. Kiryu stands up and stumbles out of the Tojo HQ, and Haruka runs off stage. Credits roll, and after we see Kiryu passed out in the snow getting woke up by Haruka. I love this game. Despite the flaws, I still enjoyed pretty much every minute I spent in it, apart from like walking around the prison. It's a shame we didn't get to see Tanimura again as he was my favourite in 4, but all the characters present were great choices. And in the end, everyone got their own little endings. Shinada getting his home, Akiyama getting bowed to by the Yakuza, Saejima meeting Majima again, and Baba being saved by his prison friends. My only big complaint with the game is that Haruka being an idol was a bit of a waste of time, since she just kind of quit her big debut, making pretty much everything Kiryu had done for a bit irrelevant, since she's no longer being one. However, Haruka's idol story does lend itself to the rest of the game's focus on following your dreams. Kiryu leaving the orphanage so Haruka can follow hers, Akiyama and Haruka trying to see Parks through, and Shinada, whose story is about being reigniting his dream after being forced to leave it. The story is more grounded and human than the others, mainly focusing on the present than things that are happening in the past. Like the world it takes place in feels alive thanks to how many cities and locations there are. Having things like the Snow Village add to the scope of the game by showing how the world has more stuff than just cities. The game is the most ambitious of the series and delivers in what it's trying to do. RGG took a risk in making it as long as it is, and I think they delivered. The story rarely gets stale, and with all the side stuff that's available, it's very easy to get distracted, keeping the gameplay from getting stale as well. All the characters were lovable, especially Shinada's story. His and Tatsugi's relationship is really fun to watch as it develops for his story. And in the end when he calls Shinada, not for money but as a friend, is really nice to see. Overall, this is my favourite Yakuza game out of the ones I've played. I will probably do 6 in the future. Thanks for all the support in the last video, that did far better than I expected it to do. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe. And if you have any criticism, leave a comment because I'm still kind of new to making videos and I want to improve obviously. Thanks for watching, goodbye.